Oh my gosh. Welcome back to another episode. Mike Lindstrom, co-host with my man Scott Leese. What's Your Story podcast number 15. I can't believe it. We're on episode number 15 as we go into 2026. A good friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, 17 plus years, Carey Pena. Carey is Emmy award-winning news anchor, host, journalist, founder, and CEO of Inspired Media, entrepreneur, obviously, philanthropist, mother. I just call her a badass woman who just knows about everybody in town. She actually has her own cast, which is kind of cool to have her come into our studio and sit down with us. She has her own studio, which is amazing, and talk just about her documentary that she has, all her research journalism, her many, many years in journalism, how she's parlayed that into business beyond being on TV, makeup and hair every single day, but has her own business and studio and doing some pretty cool things in the world and making an impact. So it's an honor to be able to sit down with a fellow entrepreneur, fellow Arizonian, a fellow parent, talk about this day and age with social media and everything that's going on. Scott and I enjoyed it. Hopefully you as well. Carey Pena, enjoy episode number 15. What's Your Story? Oh my goodness. Mike Lindstrom, Scott Leese, What's Your Story podcast. Next episode, Carey Pena, longtime friend. Got some really good stories about our relationship here in the Phoenix market. It also helped me get some of my media start here when my books were coming out in 08, 010 and beyond, kind of aging ourselves. You know who we're talking to today, right?
No.
You've done your homework.
I've done a little bit of homework.
All right,
yeah. I'm still stuck on the fact that you said 010. I was trying to process that a little bit.
Yeah, you were thinking about it.
That got me right there.
Time flies, man. Time flies. So Carey Pena, she's going to tell us her story. Documentarian, media person, Mama Bear. There's so many monikers. I don't like to give this away. We do that in post, but I want to let her tell her story. The first question, first of all, thank you, Carey, for coming on the show.
Of course.
First
Thank
question
you guys for having me.
Always ask is, what's your story? And you can take us wherever you want to go.
I love it. I just love that you said, do you know who we're having? I'm like, he's your co-host, so I hope you know who's going to be sitting with you today.
I test him on how
I don't know who's coming through the door next.
I'd be afraid of this podcast if you're like, I don't know. Who's that girl over there? I appreciate you guys having me. Beautiful studio. And my girl Yetta was here just a little while ago, who I used to co-anchor the news with, and she's the best. So I guess my story is that I knew from age 16 that I wanted to be a journalist. I grew up in LA. I was living in LA, and I was in an environment where a lot of people were doing acting and all those things, really creative environments. But my family was in medicine, and I was like, how do I merge kind of like thoughtful learning and creative energy? And I was watching television one day. I'll never forget this. It was the political season, and I saw what I deemed at that point like a younger woman reporter, and she was reporting on politics, and I was like, that right there, it merges all the things I like: learning, education, and also creative energy, sort of acting in my mind and being on camera. So I was fascinated by that, and I put my mind to go in that direction from that age.
Was there anybody in the family, because medicine, I did do my homework, so was there anybody in the family that says, oh, wait a minute, you're 16, let's go the traditional route, go to college, go to med school?
My grandfather, Emilio Peña, he tried to shake me down. He's like, you're going to be a doctor. I'm like, nobody wants me operating on them. Absolutely zero people want me in the operating room. So I just knew that wasn't for me. And, I have a family of people who are all successful and smart, but I wanted to go my own direction, and I felt the pull. I knew what it was.
So from 16 on, tell us a little about that journey. Not a lot of people at 16 know what the heck they want to do in life.
Very few people,
I think. In general. So take us on that journey.
That's a good question. It spoke to me, and so I really started researching it. And I'm a person that when I put my mind to something, I really try to make a plan. And that has served me well from a young age. It kept me out of trouble. I always was, involved in like tennis, dancing. And when I want to do something, I like success for myself, right? So I set those standards. And when I realized that was what I wanted to do, I started researching the schools. But by age 17, I started researching what are the good journalism schools. And, you look across the country, and Mizzou, and I always liked New York. NYU is one but that was more of a film school. And so I ended up landing on going to the Cronkite School, which turned out to be one of the biggest blessings of my life, because it was an incredible on-camera experience. They throw you right in there. The professors were amazing. And then I ended up kind of sneaking on the air air as an intern at Channel 3. Yeah, nobody knew that I was on the air. And my boss one day...
How does one sneak on the air?
Because I was just always there. I was always sort of there and ready, like, does anybody need me? And I'd be there at 3 a.m., 2 you know, I mean, like, I was a hustler, right? Before the hustler culture, I was like, I don't know, I'll work harder than... I might not be smarter than everyone, but I will work harder. And so I was just always there. And one time on the weekend, they were like, we don't have a reporter, we need someone to do this live shot. And I was like, well, I'm here, I'll go. And the weekend producer was like, well, we only have like, there's a skeleton staff basically, right, on the weekends, generally speaking. And so I was like, I can do it. And I remember my boss, our vice president, Phil Ividres, he goes, was that you? Were you on the air this weekend? And I was like, was the person good or bad?
That depends.
That's a great question.
If they were good, that was definitely me. If they're bad, I don't know. You got to pull that tape and figure out who that girl was, because I don't know. And he's like, I think they got a kick out of the fact that I actually did that and kept kind of sneaking my way on the air. And I think I was decent enough to let me keep going.
And that was your entree point into...
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just a scrapper. I mean, you know, this was, 20 years ago, you did a lot, like in the news business, you were like ripping scripts and I don't know, I was just willing to do whatever. You know what I mean? So I was an intern for Scott Passmore. Now he's going to be mad at me telling this story because he's like, you always date me when you tell these stories, but it's true. I was running his scripts and I was willing to do whatever it took at that moment to become successful in the industry. And I love learning. And I loved journalism, and I still do.
Scott's been on this chair, by the way.
Scott.
His air's tomorrow, by the way.
He's amazing.
Yeah,
he's the bomb. He's a great guy.
Just a great friend, but a mentor. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He was, he was someone who I really looked up to. He was always great on the air. He's a nice guy, and he lives a good, fun, full life. You know what I mean? So he's a vibe.
That's why I call him a life enthusiast.
Yeah, he is.
Isn't that right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So now fast forward to there had to be. Oh, there's so much more to ask you. My gosh. So when you get to a point in your career, because you're obviously in this passion, but you're reading the news, you like to tell stories. I mean, that's one of the things we love about what you do. The documentary. We're going to get to the documentaries here. We're going to talk about that. That's important stuff. Did there get to a point in your career when you're on the news where you're like, okay, I've made it, I'm in the news now, but there's something else that's calling my name? Because you eventually left the TV and you started your own business, and we'll get to the entrepreneurship, but what was that transition? What happened with you that triggered that?
So this was, we were just talked about my friend Yetta, who was on your show also, and we were co-anchors. And, the news business, I think I was in it at the most beautiful time. And we had, that was when everyone was really watching the news, right? So you really had the ability to go out in public. People were proud of you and they loved you. And there was sort of a shift started happening with the media, right? And it wasn't that I needed the adoration, but I felt a shift happening in terms of how people consumed media, and I was curious about that. Mm-hmm. I loved the data, looking at the data of when we produce a story, how many people are actually watching the news versus how many people are viewing this online. So this was a 2014-ish, right? 2013, 2014, when I started really looking at that. And I also I'm an entrepreneurial person, and I realized that I had been very protected in my news career, right? From 2000 to 2015, I had agents and people were all negotiating my contracts. I really didn't know jack about business. I really didn't, and I wanted to learn more. I just wanted to push myself to learn more. So I felt that I had checked the boxes I could check in local news, and by that time I had become a mom. So the next step for us here, Phoenix is an incredible market, right? It's a great place to live. So the only next step in my mind would be to take a national job. And when I started looking with my agent at the time at what national jobs would be available, there were good jobs available, but that would mean me traveling. And I had to make a decision that I also really wanted to be a hands-on mom.
Or uprooting your family and moving.
Or uprooting your family. And I have a husband who also has like a big career. So really uprooting my family wasn't a possibility for me at that time, and really also splitting my time and flying all over and not being present as a mom, which is no disrespect to how any mom or any dad wants to run it. I'm not judging that whatsoever. For me, I made a decision that I wanted to be a present mom. Yeah. I have a funny story about that, and I think I had told Yetta this before, but the mom thing kind of came to my mind of like how crazy our careers are in news. Is that I was assigned one time to when my kids were in Montessori, so they were about 5, so it was like kindergarten age. And so I dropped them off, and their teacher was Miss Donka, right? And so that day that I was dropping off, I was also assigned to go do the presidential arrival at Sky Harbor, which is a big deal. Like you get there on time, Secret Service will not let you in if you're not there on time, all the things. So I'm like, all right, I got this. I got my suit on. I'm dropping my kids. Miss Donka's the most amazing, Montessori, blah, blah. I get to this school, and it was Mission Montessori, and they go, okay, where's your snacks? And I'm like, what do you mean snacks? And they're like, you're the snack mom today. And I'm like, I'm the snack mom.
Uh-oh.
Like the whole class is relying on your snacks for this day. And I was like,
This is before Uber Eats.
Is there DoorDash? Is there Uber Eats? Is there, what can I do? So this is no exaggeration. I'm like flying. I cannot disappoint. Now I'm the worst mom ever in the history of Montessori because I have no snacks. They're all relying on me. And so Miss Donka is a Bulgarian. Like she's like no nonsense. She's like, you gotta get those snacks over here. I don't care what you gotta do, lady. So I go down the street. I'm like, but whatever snacks I could find, I drop them off. I'm racing to Sky Harbor. I walk up, the Secret Service guys, I'm there like just in the nick, and they're like looking at me. I'm like, listen, I was the snack mom. Please, I have to get on the air. Like you guys, I had to get the snacks. And the guy, I think, felt sorry for me. He's like, just show me your ID. Get in there. And
he's like, I don't care about this snack story. You got the ID or not?
I was like, it's a motherhood moment, please. Very emotional. And then 2 seconds later, like, and the president's about to arrive here behind us. And I have really nothing more to say than that. Besides, I did deliver the snacks to my children today. So it's like this weird juxtaposition, you know?
How did you, I'm always fascinated whenever I would be on the show with you all back in the day, in the morning especially, when I would come on. I'm on there for 5 minutes. I go in, I go out. You've been up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, depending on what show you're on. You're a mother. Like, how do you do that? How do you, and you're an entrepreneur. I love that you said hustler, because I said this last night when I was doing my prep. I was watching a lot of your videos, and the first word that came to my mind, she's a hustler. I'm like, oh, Mike, you can't say that but you said it. So you said it, and I'm going to go with it because I thought the same thing. You are a hustler in an entrepreneur sense in everything you do. You are going to outwork people, and I see that in your work ethic. But being a mom and balancing the time, how do you do that when you're in the old school media days? Now you have the ability to come and go, and because you're an entrepreneur running your show. How do you do that?
Production studios.
How do you do that?
I think you have to love what you're doing. I think if you find joy and you really love what you're doing, then you can make it all happen, right? Like I loved my time, in particular at Channel 3, which was the bulk of my on-camera career. I loved it, and I loved the people I work with. I loved the stories. I loved it, and as long as I was evolving, I felt like, wow, this is all worth it. And then I also love being a mom. So I think if you have joy in your moments, it doesn't feel like a drag. And there's a lot of hours in the day, right? So really, if you optimize the time that you have, you can do a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it's also about having a bit of an organized mind, you know? And so to me, it was like, all right, well, I go here, and I want to make sure I'm doing all these things well. So I didn't ever feel like, wow, this is overwhelming to me.
What's your strategy for organizing your mind? Are you like a hour by hour kind of block your time out type person?
Probably to a fault. Yeah, I'm
very scheduled and regimented.
I'm pretty scheduled, and I actually have tried to untrain my mind from that because I'm really studying right now a lot of mindfulness. I'm really into a mindfulness pattern in my life, which is kind of teaching me to unravel a little bit of that.
It's very hard to be mindful and present in the moment if you're worried about what am I doing at 11 o'clock and then 12
being
o'clock.
Mindful, as you both know, is about being present. So right now, today, after I leave here, I have a lot of things on my plate. But right now, I'm enjoying being in your studio. I'm appreciative that you all invited me. I'm thankful that I was able to see one of my girls, Yetta, here in the studio before I came on. I'm appreciative of this moment. And so even even though I'm a person that is always driving forward, I also have always been very good at living in the moment because I enjoy being around people. And I do think that that's what made me a good journalist. And I don't mean to be, egotistical, but I think that's what makes me good at doing interviews is because I really enjoy hearing what people have to say and learning about people.
Yeah.
Talks about entrepreneurship. Let's fast forward to that. There had to be that part of you, not just the balance of time and being able to come and go as you please, not be regimented to, oh my gosh, I have to have makeup and hair and be up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Now you work for yourself. And I heard on a couple interviews you had done, one of the podcasts locally, you talked about entrepreneurship. You said, hey, I was great at certain things here, but learning the business part of it and entrepreneurship was something that you kind of were thrown into the fire. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, thank you for that question. So being an entrepreneur is hard. It is hard. I find it, much easier. And for some people, it is going to be a better path to just get your paycheck and know what you have and have your insurance and all these things, right? People come to me and they're like, wow, you created this badass, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea because I didn't write a business plan. I just was looking at the stories that people were responding to. So I started step by step. When I left Channel 3, I was doing other media gigs, right? I was still hosting a political show. I don't like to host politics anymore for a lot of different reasons, but that's a different show. But but I was hosting a political show, and I was doing correspondent work for other on-air publications, et cetera. And I started writing, and when I started leading into how do I build an actual business plan, and then I thought, you know what, I actually want to learn this stuff. And what you have to do, I think, as an entrepreneur is be honest about what you don't know. You can't go into it with ego, right? Yeah. So I had to say, when I was in rooms with a lot of people who were smarter in this area than me or this area than me, I had to acknowledge, I want to learn from you. I want to hear your advice of how do I build these things, right? I want to learn how do I understand the back end of my website. I want to know these things because for a long time, I wasn't the one responsible for that. I would just submit my story, boom, the Channel 3 tech team would post it. That's all.
So are you the type of entrepreneur now then that wants to learn things and do the work yourself, or are you the type of entrepreneur that wants to learn things but then will delegate and outsource the work to other people?
That's a really interesting question, and it's a good question. I like to do the work myself, and I'm willing always to do the work myself. Mm-hmm. But in order to grow my business, because now I'm the one writing the checks, right? Yeah. So if I'm doing all the work myself, we can't scale.
Yeah.
Right? Because I need to be out, I need to be on stage, I need to be meeting people, and to me, my success, which I want to acknowledge that I'm very blessed. I'm very blessed for the success I have had, and it hasn't been easy, but I attribute it to the relationships, to being authentic, and people know when I'm a handshake person. If I tell you I'm going to do I'm going to do this for you, I will do it. I don't even need a contract to do it. And
which is more and more rare nowadays, I think.
It's how I work. I'm old school. I had really good grandparents, and they were like, look, your word means everything. Who you are as a person, and I don't think you can fake that, right? So I've been fortunate because people trust me, and that's how I think that I've grown. But now we are at a point now where our media business, my company, Inspired Media 360, we create all kinds of things, documentary films now. We've gotten into that line of work. We create long-form videos. We're the storytelling strategists for a lot of companies and CEOs, not here just in Phoenix, but across the country. And I live part-time in London, so I'm doing some work there. So, Yetta's over there. She's like, wait, what? Yeah.
She just casually dropped that she lives in London sometimes.
So, I mean, to me, like, the sky's the limit. And once I started actually having faith in myself that I knew I could do it, it just started building. But I have, for myself and all those around me, I want excellence. So I'd rather have everything done with excellence and that we're very intentional than I'm just trying to grab every bit of business, I don't say yes to everything. I always ask people, they come to me, can you create a podcast for me? Why do you want to do a podcast? What is it for? What is your objectives? Do you want to make money from the podcast? Is it a brand build? So I go through with everyone. I don't like people wasting time or money.
Yeah, and by the way, I know that about you. My wife Monica was in media a lot. You guys did stuff together when she was doing that stuff, so I got to see how you guys all worked behind cameras, and I knew the hustler mentality that you were. It's like, I would say GSD, right? Get shit done.
Yeah.
And that's your mentality. So when you said, hey, I don't do a lot of these, and I know that. So I thank you for taking the time to come here. So that hustler mentality, though, how does that in entrepreneurship, you want to hustle, you want to go, you're not going to say yes to everything, but what's the biggest challenge you have as an entrepreneur? Now that you've figured out, you did the business plan, you built the company, now what's the biggest challenge you have as an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest challenge I have right now is making sure that I can help everyone who I'm working alongside lean into innovative ways to tell their story, right? You know, as a reporter, as a journalist, I could go in and I could write a story. You guys could tell me something, and I could be like, all right, here's the script. What my challenge right now is, how do we use AI? How do we use new technologies? How do we continue to be creative in telling these stories? So I'll give you an example. Yeah. So I architect a lot of galas. So the nonprofit space is one that I work heavily in. And I started working in that space during COVID because I had a studio, right, that had the ability to live stream. And when COVID happened, a lot of nonprofits were at risk of going under because they could not have their in-person galas, which in many cases drive their funding for the entire year. So during COVID, the first gala that I ended up producing into a show was for Phoenix Children's Hospital. We were scheduled to do an in-person event for them. They realized early on, when COVID was spreading, we have to go a different route. And I looked at it as an opportunity to say, how do we tell these stories and stream them and show these nonprofits that the storytelling, not necessarily like your dinner and how good the chicken dish is or how much wine you serve, it's about the story. What is your headline? We ended up producing, I think, about 32 shows during COVID, streaming for St. Jude, for Valley Wise Health, for some of the biggest organizations, Phoenix Children's Hospital, and they were very successful. So that showed me in the nonprofit space how valuable it is to help them advance their headlines. And now we're seeing for nonprofits, right, because, and this is not a political statement, but the federal funding is being yanked from a lot of nonprofits, which is teaching them a hard lesson. That is, you can't just rely on federal funding. You have to create a donor base that's sustainable. And how do you do that? Through telling your story, right? Storytelling, and what Yetta and I do, and Scott Passmore and all these great journalists that and I'm a big fan of journalism, by the way. People beat up on our industry all the time now, and I'm just, people ask me, like, in these editorial meetings are all these sinister things happening? I'm like, I've never seen that. I've only seen good people going in these meetings trying to work hard and tell good stories, right? And be honest, but it's hard sometimes to get the honest truth out of everyone. But I want to say on record that every one of these people I've worked with has gone into it because they love the art of storytelling, and they try to go at it and be truthful and bring the public. It's important. Yeah. What journalists do is important, whether it's on the news or in the space I'm in, because I still adhere to those same standards, even though I'm not broadcasting on TV, right? So when I go in to orchestrate a storytelling, menu for anyone, I say, what is your truth? What is your headline? How are you driving your story forward? And how do we tell a human story? I'm not a marketer. I'm not a PR person. I'm here to just tell the story.
I would actually argue that you are pretty damn good at marketing.
Oh, thank you.
And all of that stuff, because storytelling is a piece of that.
It is a piece of that, yeah.
And it's becoming more and more of a piece of that, because attention is the new currency for everything.
That's right.
It's not about like SEO or backlinks and all this other kind of stuff. And the hook is arguably the most important piece. And that's a narrative that you're helping people craft and create.
I appreciate that.
My question is, because attention is gamified so much, and you try to be as like controversial as possible, a lot of the substance and quality kind of content gets lost in the noise of all the notifications and everything coming at us all the time, right? So how are you trying to balance like the substance of the work that people are doing with also trying to get people's attention?
So that is a question that I talk about with my team all the time, and they'll see this, so they know I'm giving you like a complete honest answer. I am done with trying to game the system. I really don't care. Like I'm just like, let's just tell the story, and if it's a good story and it's authentic, people will care about it. And if they don't care about it, we did our best.
But they have to find it before they can care about it.
But the thing is that once you tell a good story, it will be shared, right?
It will get found.
Yes, and so I think stories, some of the biggest moments of my success are stories that people come to me and they're like, would you tell this story? It's not necessarily sexy, isn't it? And I was like, kidding me? Absolutely. I'll give you 2 examples. One example is right when I left Channel 3, a friend of mine was running this cross-training gym, and he called me up and he said, hey, a couple of guys, so they helped a lot of veterans, right? And he said, one of my friends, Derek Wida, is coming to the gym. He's going to train. He's an amputee. He has an incredible story. He's becoming a CrossFit champion. Do you think, you want to come out here? And I was like, yeah, I'll go out. That's incredible. I want to meet him, first of all. I want to talk to him. I want to hear his story. I went out and there was no like calculation in my mind of like, we'll market the story this way. I was just like, this guy is a badass. I want to know how he like reconfigured his brain. Mm-hmm. He was in Walter Reed for a year after his injuries. Young guy, all the stuff, moved to San Diego, went through suicidal ideations, and told me this story about how he woke up one day and he's like, look, and he said this to me, not verbatim, but along these lines. He said, look, you have a choice to make. Either you're going to go this way or you're going to go this way, but you got to choose. And when he said that to me, I was like, whoa, okay. So I ran that story. This was just me in my own mediascape, not even knowing, because I was like, now I'm just my own brand, putting out stories, right? I didn't know if people are going to watch them or not or whatever. Derek has a choice vocabulary, so I'll just say, and I'll never forget this. I was at the movies, and I get a text from him, and it was, colorful, and he's like, have you seen the story, so the Department of Defense or the Department of Veterans Affairs, I forget now which, posted the story on their website. It went like super viral. Everyone used that term viral, but this story legitimately went viral, right? And I was like, that's just raw storytelling. That was just me going out, interested in this guy who's a badass, who I think his story could help inspire other people, not just veterans, but people who are suffering depression, suicidal ideation. And you know why? Because it wasn't calculated. Yeah. And I didn't try to think up like, what's the sexiest thing I can do about this story? It was just like, this is him. This is what it is.
Was that mission similar with Blank Canvas in the documentary?
Yeah, so thanks for that question. So Blank Canvas was the documentary we produced. Another, Yetta and I used to also co-anchor with Brandon Lee, who's another incredible journalist, who just found that media on air was not for him anymore. He also happens to be good at everything, including art. So he started an art therapy, art healing studio, and he started working with various groups, including like developmentally disabled and then veterans, and then he got into the space of working with formerly incarcerated folks. And he now is working in the prisons because Ryan Thornell, who's the director of the prison system here, has done something I think, and this is not a political statement, is so incredible, but he's opened up the idea of should we try to heal people in the prisons. So our work was done in Perryville, which is the women's prison. And Director Thornell was so brave in this decision because he's obviously becomes a punching bag of, are you being liberal? Are you, this? 93% of the women in Perryville are getting out, right? So his theory, and I'm just paraphrasing, I don't want to quote him here, but his theory is basically, is it worth seeing if these women can be rehabilitated? And as a society, should we ask the question, can we heal trauma? Mm-hmm. He has allowed Brandon to set up his Art of Our Soul is what it's called, studios on the Lumley Yard in Perryville, and they gave us full access to go in there and sort of study that process. And we were able to create a documentary short out of that, and I give Brandon all the credit in the world because he's led the charge, and he's like MacGyver who figures everything out. I'm like, how did you figure all this stuff out? And he's like, I don't know. He just keeps going. He's an incredible entrepreneur, one of my best friends. And so we followed that journey, and Blank Canvas was what we ended up creating out of that.
That's awesome.
So there was a quote, we talked about this today. What was the quote? The gal at the beginning of the interview said, "You are 4 decisions away from being incarcerated."
Oh, in the Blank Canvas show?
Said,
Yeah.
everyone is four choices away.
We wanted to hear your take on this because we were like, "Aren't you one?" So there's a belief there, and that was a powerful statement right at the beginning of the documentary, by the way. So talk about that.
So it's interesting because I had mixed emotions. I mean, I've never, I'm like a law-abiding person. Like, I'm a rule follower, right? So me going into prison, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, I understand this whole vibe. I go in there with my high heels.
It's not your people.
But there was a learning curve for me too to try to understand. And Brandon taught me a lot about that. He's like, you can't go in with judgment, And when you start talking to some people about how life can go sideways quickly, and in particular, because this was my reporting was with the women. A lot of the women have had domestic violence situations. A lot of them have been sexually abused. They've had a significant amount of trauma. And that is not to say an excuse for bad behavior or criminal behavior. But I think it is to say that, do we want to try to understand what brought them here? Mm-hmm. So one of the women we profiled in our film, her name is Peña, and she was in there for felony murder, which means you were there when someone else committed the crime, but you didn't commit the crime. It was a somewhat controversial law when it passed, and I covered it when it passed. So she had lived what she described as a good, life with a good family, and then she had a sexual trauma that happened to her at a young age with a young guy. And she said from that point on, she started hanging around the wrong crowd, in her words. And so she was hanging around people who were doing drugs, etc. And she ended up dating a guy who had a gang affiliation, and he went on a drug rip. And it was a relatively small amount of marijuana. And he was armed. The other guy was armed. They shot each other. She's charged with felony murder.
Because she's there.
Yeah.
And so, she was one of the women we profiled. And so she loves Art of Our Soul. She feels it's brought her a lot of healing. But she's in prison for 23 years. Off the top of my head, I think it was 23 years. She served like 11 years of that sentence. And she has 2 kids. And so she's one that we asked the question, is this, first of all, who we need in prison for 23 years?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm leaving this to the audience. I don't like to tell people how to think. Is that who we need? Because our prison system is overcrowded and it's unsustainable. And that's one of the things Brandon talks about that he's right about, that as a society, you can't just keep throwing more and more people in prison. There's a lot of people in there that have marijuana possession charges, and now marijuana is legal. Yeah. So, I mean, is that not something to look at? I don't know.
Absolutely.
So Crystal is someone that we talked to, and it was sad. It was sad, and I walked. They gave me like free access around that. I was cruising around and with my phone and everything. I was like, is this all right? Okay, I guess,
Do you finish a project like that and feel invigorated, like, oh, I want to do something like that again, or I want to take this farther? Or do you finish a project like that and kind of take a deep breath and be like, that took everything out of me, and I don't know if I want to go through that again?
Yeah, so that's also a great question. I mean, that was a hard project. It was hard. It was hard going into Perryville. It's hard hearing those stories, going in the cells.
Yeah.
And just the amount of work that goes into a documentary project like that is really, really intense, right? Because everything's scrutinized. You have to worry about some legal aspects, and you want to make sure your storytelling is done right. But I guess that's where I am crazy, that I love to lean into. I like my life to be a little challenging. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually about to start, I can't say it yet because it's not public, but because of that film, we've now signed on for another film that is potentially a big national film. And it's something that is another hard issue, and I already know the road we're about to travel is not going to be easy. But I like that kind of work. I guess, I mean, I wish I was the kind of girl that I would love to be able to feel good. And I do when I just can go to Pilates and, do whatever. But then but then people will write to me, have you looked at this issue? Have you this? And I don't know, something just pulls me in that direction. And I guess I feel like if I have a following and the ability to bring.
Well, you have a platform.
I have a platform.
Yeah.
So then
and you care about using it for good.
I want to use it for good. I really care about that.
That's the name. And so, I mean, I love that name, by the way. I think it's fantastic. You got that domain, too. That's a killer domain.
I have that domain. Thank you. Yeah. And then my building, one of my buildings is the Center for Positive Media. Yeah. And we've tried really hard to stay true to that. I believe in that. I mean, people out there, I believe for the most part, people are good. If you speak to the good side, if you share the part of the story, so I've seen a lot of tragic stories, but what always spoke to me is in tragedy, all the goodness. I mean, all the people that when something bad happens, they will run to the rescue. The people who run into the burning building, not run away. There's much more good than bad, and that's what I try to shine the light on.
One thing that I've always respected about you and our friends in media, especially women, and the entrepreneur part adds to it, is you put yourself out there. And I've said this to Yetta, I've said this to anybody in media. We asked Scott Passmore that question, do you even read the stuff when people hate or whatever? It's very tough when you're in the media, but you've taken it to a whole nother level. You're taking on some tough issues. It's not even political. These are human beings in prison. You're doing a documentary, you're telling a real life story. You're on social media. You're emceeing events all the time. I love seeing your face all the time. You're doing you're doing all these things in philanthropy. Do you just rely on those and say, hey, something's going to come to me? The spiritual part of me is going to say, hey, I'm going to go speak in front of this audience, MC this. Someone's going to come up to me at some point and say, you need to tell a story about this. Like, does it just come to you? Is it intuition, or is it just because you put yourself out there so far that things just come to you all the time and go, you got to see this, you got to try this out? Like, so you're weeding through all these leads, for lack of a better word. Like, how do you decide what's the next project? Or is it just an intuition?
Yeah, someone asked me that on stage not long ago. That's an interesting question. I think some of it is intuition. Again, it goes back to relationships. I've built relationships. So a lot of times what will happen is someone will tell their friend, I have this story, like I'm on this cancer journey and I am doing this experimental treatment that has really worked for me. And the friend will say, oh, you got to tell Carey Pena. And I've been fortunate to work with the likes of TGen and City of Hope, and I have good contacts. So I like solutions. So I also am a big believer in solutions storytelling, right? I don't want to just sit here and tell you about how sad things are.
Yeah. Let's do something about it.
I want to talk about, what was it that got someone through this pain? Or if there is a scientific breakthrough that people don't know about that maybe that could be helpful, let's tell it. That's kind of, so when I choose, I always look at where can I actually have impact, right? I don't want to just be spinning my wheels, and so to me, thought leadership, so the Blank Canvas Project, again, that's not for me. And I've worked a lot with victim impact folks. You know what I mean? I understand it might tick some people off to say, why are you giving a platform to someone who did these? And I understand that point of view as well. My role, in the way I view it, is just to say, can we have a conversation about this? Can we talk about this and see, are there ways to bring people together? And maybe there are different opinions, but can we respect those opinions? And if we can't, I also respect that, as long as we're not hateful. I just don't deal in hate. I can deal in differing opinions, but I don't deal in hate.
No, I 100%. Abundance versus scarcity, that whole mentality. That's the law of attraction. You can call it whatever you want, but you're right. It's an energy, it's a feeling, and vibrating in that. We had Ian from Spiritual Gangster sat in the chair last month. He was talking about how he vibrates, right? His frequencies.
He's cool.
He's awesome.
He's cool.
Frequencies are at a high level. Low frequency, no good. High frequency, good.
Now that's something I'm a big believer in, and I actually won't work with someone. I can feel that. If I feel someone that comes to meet with me and they want it, and I could tell that there's that low frequency or that negativity underlying,
Intuition.
it's not my vibe, and I don't want to deal with it. And I don't want my team to deal with it.
That's something you're born with, right? Because you have to hone it in your skill in media because you're interacting with so many people. But that's something that not everybody has.
I think so, and I think I've been a good like that since I was young. Because I would look back on, I have friends, and my daughter said this to me. She goes, "Mom, you have so many friends that you've had for a really long time," and I thought that was a good compliment.
It was a good compliment,
right? That shows her that when you pick good friends, your people, not everyone's your person, and that's okay too, right? But you have to choose where do you want your vibration to be, and that is something that is in our control. So if I allow someone to take that from me, and I take on a gig because they're going to pay me X, Y, Z, this, but I already feel that, but I'm leaning into it because I want the money. Well, then it's my bad, because then I'm going to have to suffer the consequences.
Not all money is good money.
Not all money is good money, and it is not worth your mental health.
That's right.
So there's one of the books I love is called "What's Your Brand?" and he talks about in that book, you are the brand is what it's called. You are the brand, and he says there's three things: what pisses you off, what breaks your heart, and what solution do you bring to the table? When those three things intersect, the middle of it, that's when you know you got it. Yeah. You're saying that, and everything that you're talking about. Oh, hey, I want to bring solutions to the table. What breaks your heart? What pisses you off? What
breaks my heart? I mean, what breaks my heart, I was just having this conversation last night with a healthcare executive who I was out with. And obviously, to me, it is inexcusable for abuse of any kind, child abuse. I'm working heavily in that space. To see people suffering, people who are vulnerable suffering like that, to me, those stories that I've reported on breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to see kids suffering from the mental health challenges that they have today, the anxiety. I work a lot in the suicide prevention space. That breaks my heart. So
you have a default towards action, though.
I have a default towards action, yes.
And so that's where the solution part comes in, because I think a lot of people feel and hear these heartbreaking stories, or they're aware and they just shut down, or potentially even worse, there's like, well, nothing I can do about that, right? Right. And that's where the failure begins, really, is
for all of
nobody.
Us, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like
just nobody doing anything about it.
You do a story about a child who's going to school with clear marks all over them, and you know what I mean? And everyone's sort of, I know people want to do good, but then they're sort of paralyzed with what can they do. So I'm doing a lot of work in that space, and I don't want to take it into too heavy to tell too many of those stories, but I'm doing a lot of work with Child Help, which is one of the national organizations that's leading the way, and the Center for the Rights of Abused Children. They have pro bono attorneys that go across the country that stand up for these kids, so giving a voice to the voiceless. But it does go to, if my heart is broken, my heart can be broken, but then what can I do about it? If I'm ticked off, I don't like the word pissed off. I tell my kids, like, sir, I'm very proper. And
that's the quote from the book, by the way. That's a quote from the book.
It's not, but, it's just like, let's do things that are conscionable. You know what I mean? So those are the things that make me upset, but then I want to move from that into what can I do?
Yeah. That was what the author was trying to portray. That's why I probably used a strong language, because it evokes in us. There's an emotional state that breaks our heart. It hurts us. It gets us angry. And that's where you usually find the purpose and the why to get to the action.
Well, I like some of those gritty. I mean, one of my favorite actual books that I listened to on audiobook is something. So I was like always a Brene Brown person. And then I got a hold of David Goggins.
Oh, yeah.
It's very different.
It was very different, but his book and his delivery kind of spoke to me, and I love that, because it lent me a little bit of grit that I feel sometimes I need, because I like things to be nice, and I try to and sometimes you got to shake the leaves, right? You have to, and so I listened to, I think his book was called "You Can't Hurt Me," and I loved it, and I have utmost respect for him, in his approach, but I try to blend those approaches.
Love it. Yeah. So you talk about your family and all the influences you had, grandparents. What was one or two things that you remember that they taught you? It could be a quote or as a principle that you always will remember because Grandpa said it or Grandma, somebody influenced in your life and your family. What would that be?
Yeah. So my grandmother, Hope Peña, she was Greek, and she always, every day, what I remember about her is that she always got up and got dressed. Dressed up. Even if she had her house slippers on.
You're not going to find her in her PJs?
You're not going to find her rolling around in her PJs. She always got dressed. And as simple as that seems, maybe, there's something you're looking for that's more, but that to me actually was impressionable, that she wanted to present, even if it was just us, her grandkids in the house, that she always looked how she wanted the world to receive her. And she actually came from Greece, and she was a burn survivor. She had a car accident in Greece. She was burned over a lot of her body. She was in the hospital for, I think, at least a year, came to the United States. And I always thought, wow, she kept going. Right? There's this spirit. Like, that's what it always teaches me. When I feel like, oh my gosh, this is all too much. And then I tell myself, just keep going. Just keep moving on. So that's kind of what that taught me. And, and my grandparents on the other side, my grandpa was just like a simple guy. And I think some of the simplistic ways that he lived taught me that everything doesn't have to be so complicated. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember he would drink that dreadful Folgers coffee. And I think of him today, thinking of us getting our $7, he would pass out if he saw us driving. And I just remember he was simple, and we had so much fun because I would spend the summers with them, and it was simple. He'd drink his coffee, he woke up early. I don't know, we played cards and stuff. I think those were lessons that kind of took me that we can really overcomplicate life.
Yeah,
it's powerful. So you're a mom, so we're gonna play mom to yourself. So you have to go back and give your 16-year-old self some advice. What would you tell your 16-year-old self?
That don't be intimidated by any room you're in.
Yeah,
that's really good advice for anybody.
Really good advice. I've never seen you in that situation ever. I don't know if you know this, but the first time you and I ever met was for 2 minutes. My book had come out in 2008, 2009, and I was starting to do the media circuit. Yetta was on Fox at the time, and there was a nonprofit event in the Quarters. The time the Quarters was brand new, so I'm flashing back to 17 years. You and John Jay were co-hosting this little private party.
Oh, I love John Jay.
It was a VIP party, and I wasn't in the party. I wasn't part of it, but I was at it. And somebody who's a mutual friend, I don't remember who it was, they goes, have you ever met them? I go, I haven't done anything with her on TV, but I want to meet. He's like, oh, come on in. So they literally, pull the rope over. And of course, John Jay, I'd never met him before at that time.
Cool, yeah.
And he's just hugger guy. Hey, what's up, bro? I didn't even know him from anybody. And then we met for 2 minutes. Yeah. And I remember watching you from afar that night. Because you're the VIP, you're the center of attention, you're on television, and you're somewhat. You can feel the vibe of the energy. I always watch people from afar, and I got that working for Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins is obviously amazing. That was my first real job. But watching how Tony interacts with a room of 5,000 people, Tony could be right there with you in front of 7,000 people, and you feel like he's right there.
Yeah.
Even when this seminar is over and people come up to him, and this is true of any speaker or anybody of note, you can pay attention to how they are when they're off the stage.
Yes.
And I saw you off stage, and I was impressed.
Oh,
I never forgot that moment. I don't know if you ever knew that that's when you and I first met, because it was so brief. But then it was, of course, I think it was on live camera maybe 2 years later when we actually interacted. But that was my first foray in seeing who you were as a person.
I love that. Thank you.
And that's truth. So I wanted to tell you that as a gift, because I've watched everything you do with philanthropy in the community. Because I work a lot with Jerry Colangelo. Ours is called Ambassadors of Compassion, and we work with AmPhil. Jeremy Beer, actually, who's the CEO and founder of AmPhil, is going to be here today, and he talks about the MCs, you and some of the folks, even the auctioneers who come in, Letitia, who come in. Oh my gosh! Talking about powerful people who come into this space of philanthropy, and we have a lot of them in Phoenix.
Yeah.
A lot of powerful women you, right?
Letitia's incredible.
And you all know each other. It's so abundant, and you guys give. It's not a competition.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing is that, if you don't, no matter what level, I'm a newscaster. It's not like I'm some, I'm not Mariah Carey, whatever. But you can always trip in your head and think that you're so famous and you're so important and you're so much better. I just really never felt like that. Yeah. I just don't. I love people. And I that's something I think that I'm very grateful that I have that, that I don't have to fake that I respect everyone, and I could travel across the country on a private jet, or I could drive with a photographer to cover a story and be eating out of Circle K, and I can do either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's about for your listeners and viewers, to me, and this is a show about what are you made of, where'd you come from, and all these things. It's who do you want to be as a person? Yeah. right? Who do you want to be? And is it some made up thing? Is it some, social media thing or whatever it is? Or can you just say like, hey guys, it's cool that you have me on your show today and thank you and I'm grateful. Not like, hey, you guys are so lucky that I made time to come over here. Yeah. There's a difference in that.
I feel it.
You know what I mean?
Trust me, I know. I do feel it. Or we always finish with rapid fire and then you could close out with what you want to brag on. So my first rapid, you go second. Favorite book all time?
Khalil Gibran.
Okay.
I think that one is the, Prophet.
Okay, yeah.
I feel like that was one of the most impactful when I read it. I mean, there's so many books, so that's hard. There's so many books. But when I think about a moment in time when I read something that felt really powerful to me, that one comes to mind.
What's the thing about living in London that you wish you could bring back here?
Ooh, good one.
I love the diverse cultural, there's so many different types of people and so many different, races and colors, and everyone vibes. And I like my kids to see that. Yeah, being exposed to a worldview.
Yeah.
Favorite quote or quote you live by?
Man,
or saying something that, like, if I asked you,
I write all the quotes and now I can't think. I mean, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, and that is just keep going.
Yeah.
I really do think that's it.
What are mamas? If I interview your kids and say, what does mom say all the time? What would they tell me? What's that one thing mom always tells you?
Oh, they make so much fun of me about everything.
Don't they all, though? They all.
Normal.
Yeah, teenagers, we get it.
Yeah. We're all so lame.
They see me as someone who sees the world through. They always tell me that I'm like a unicorn. That but I think they would go to the fact that I don't like treating other people disrespectfully. I will not tolerate that. I don't tolerate that I don't like trash talking of any type. And I say, if you're going to, so my son has all his basketball friends and they have some trash talking going on, and they know, Ty, Alex, if you guys see this, I'll be driving them, and then they know I'll turn down the radio and I'm like, not in my car. I don't stand for it. Unless you're going to have that conversation with that person. We're not going to sit here and bag on how they played today, right? So that, and also I don't allow for the, I always make them play the clean versions of all the songs in my car.
I love that.
So we play the hip hop, but only the clean versions.
I think it's great. I think we need more of that.
Having been on TV, people want to be critical of everyone else, and actually, I learned to just take that criticism, and most of it for women's about your looks. So people will just be quick to tell you, like, I hate your hair today, your eyelash is falling off, and, which has happened. It's like flapping, and, you can feel it, and it's real hard to do an eyelash thing in the middle of a commercial. But actually, learning to absorb some criticism actually becomes like your superpower, because you can't take anything away.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say I'm the most beautiful. I'm fortunate that I'm healthy, that I'm standing here, that I have some good attributes. I'm not trying to say that I'm Miss America. And so, when you let some of that stuff go,
I love it.
it's okay.
That's great.
Then it's like David Goggins. You can't hurt me.
You can't hurt me. Yeah. All right, so we always end with, you get to tell us what's up. What do you want to brag about? The studio, all the things you're doing. Tell us what's next.
Thank you. So we just had a meeting 2 days ago, and I like a good whiteboard session.
Oh, yes.
Like, even though everyone's like online, we love a good whiteboard session. And so for my core team, we put on our board everything that's coming up, the projects, and the organizations we're working with, I could name them out, but it's too long of a list. And so what we have coming up is storyboarding, telling the stories for these major organizations that have national impact on homelessness, on child abuse prevention, on suicide prevention, in the healthcare space. A lot of the healthcare CEOs have been blessed. They've come to me to help them navigate this difficult time. And I'm doing a lot in the thought leadership space, and I just signed on to do this documentary, so that'll be coming out next year.
I have one final question, because it's just, I've always wanted to know, how many MC events do you think you've ever done in your career, or do you know the number?
Oh, I MC a lot of events. I keep saying I'm not going to MC so many events.
You do so many, it's awesome.
But then someone calls me and they're like, if I feel like my presence, I don't need to be on stage.
I know that. I know, but you love what you do. You love the messaging.
If I feel that if I can really move the needle for the organization, then I say yes. So I probably in October I did 15 different events, and huge ones. I mean, for everything, I work a lot in the LGBTQIA community. I work with 1 in 10, one community. So if I feel that my presence on stage can benefit that moment in some way, then I say yes.
I love it. I love it. Carey, thank you so much.
Yeah,
You
thank you
guys are
very much.
awesome.
This means so much to us.
incredible.
It's amazing.
Great
I know
questions.
your time's, but I would love to have you on again. We do these every so often, but I would love to have you come on and brag on the next big project when it comes out.
You guys
and
are
I haven't got all the way through the documentary. I'm only a quarter of the way through it, but so far so good, and I love what you're doing.
Yeah, and people can watch it. Blank Canvas documentary. I'm not trying to be
No, I
plugged,
love
but
it.
just in case they're
Go
interested
ahead, plug
in
it.
watching
Yeah,
it.
Yeah, I love it. And we're going to put this all in post too, so people can see it and all your links and all the social media, because you're
Thank
you're
you.
a pretty accessible person.
Yeah.
People
They
can
were always like, where can people find you? I'm like,
just
Everywhere.
Just go ahead and put it in Google. You'll find it. All right, so we'll wrap up the episode. Carey Pena, Scott, what an amazing
That was
guest,
great.
as usual.
Fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah.
So signing off this episode, we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in. Mike Lindstrom, Scott Leese, what's your story?